Hello ladies and gentlemen. So in this video we are going to cover knee injuries. Many of you who are doing the classes will suffer from some kind of knee injury, an assumed knee injury or tightness certainly in the knee, which can restrict you and cause you pain during certain movements. In this video I'm going to give you some alternative exercises that you can do live in the sessions that replace that. Now you will have heard me say many of them inside the sessions, but just in this video I'm going to give you a little bit of more of an understanding of how to do them. So when you hear me say them in passing as an alternative, it triggers that memory. You've watched this video, you know exactly what to do to get the most out of the workout. Now, before I start that, I'm probably going to have to give you a little bit of tough love here and an answer maybe you don't want to hear. If you have knee problems, we cannot work around them. We can't give you a bunch of different exercises that are suddenly going to stop your knee from hurting. You need to put in the time, effort and work if you want to get rid of that knee pain. And that's not by doing different exercises during the session. That's by doing your remedial work outside of the session. It's by making the choice to fix the injury and allow yourself to move freely, and then you will be able to do the more advanced exercises. If not, we're not going to get the most out of the sessions, you're not going to get the results you want, and over time you're not going to have the longevity. We want you to be pain-free, but that is your choice. We can't train around it. You must fix the problems based on the content and the resources that I've given you so far. Now, one of the first things I gave to you was a stretching and mobility video. And what I said at the beginning of that is we use something like this. This is called a foam roller. This one's actually quite hard and plastic and knobbly to really get in nice and deep. You can get softer ones if you're fairly new to it because it can be quite painful. Essentially what this does is it massages the leg and helps you to get rid of adhesions, tight spots, and stretch the muscles out. Now, when we start to develop tightnesses through our muscles because of general day-to-day activity or past sports or lack of activity in general, inactivity, having a sedentary lifestyle, sitting down, we start to create imbalances around joints. Knees are especially susceptible to issues like that because anything wrong with the ankle will track to the knee, and anything wrong with the hip will track to the knee. So if your hips are tight, your knee is going to hurt. If your hips are tight, your back is going to hurt as well, but that's a different subject. If your knee is hurting, it could be because your ankle is not moving. So what we really need to make sure we do is take care of the muscles around the knee. Use a foam roller. Watch the video that I've already sent you, and I will link here because we're not going to go through it again for the sake of this video. You need to pay a lot of attention to rolling out your calves, all of this area around your lower leg. And we just do that by lying down the floor, placing our leg on the roller and gently moving across it for 5 to 10 minutes. We need to make sure we iron out the vastus lateralis. This is the outer head of the quadricep muscle here. It picks up loads and loads of tension, especially if you've done sport or a lot of running or cycling in the past. It gathers loads of tension, and over time, it can start to pull the knee out of line a little bit, which causes a lot of knee pain down the front. We also need to roll our IT band, which is a big fibrous strip of tissue that runs down here. Now, this one can get very painful, but again, builds up so much tension and can cause a lot of knee pain. So you need to spend the time working on that. And finally, the rectus femoris, which is a muscle that starts at the front of the hip here and runs about 2/3 of the way down the center of the quad. We need to roll that out daily as well. Okay, so foam rolling is going to be a bit painful. As I say, refer to that video, watch it, roll with me. Do the movements with me a couple of times a day, especially at the beginning, and that's going to start to iron out this knee pain. We can't train around it, you must get rid of it, and that's very easy with a little bit of attention from you. We roll out the rectus femoris, we roll out the vastus lateralis, the outside head of the quad, and we roll out the IT band every single day, ideally multiple times a day if we can. That is going to relieve the pressure around the knee. That is going to allow us to squat, to lunge, to reverse lunge, to side lunge without pain, without discomfort. Once we can do that, we can have much more intense workouts, much lower risk of injury, and the longevity for our training is going to be far better, which is super important. Yes, in this video, I'm going to show you a couple of exercises that you can do for now to replace these movements, but you're going to get bored of them if you don't choose to fix yourself. So that's the kind of mini rant over. Now, because of the kind of tension that is going to pick up through a squat, for instance, one of the squat movements, or any of the squat movements that we do, they're incredibly useful exercises because they build up the quads, they build up the butt, they work the hamstrings, they work the calves, they work the back, allow you to get into better posture. They're highly metabolic and they burn a lot of calories. So if you are unable to squat, unfortunately you're cutting yourself short a little bit on the workouts, which is why it's important for us to be able to fix you in order to allow you to squat. That being said, we have a few options of things we can do. You will have heard me in the classes say squat to a box or squat to a sofa. Now, what I mean by that is if you grab a chair, a box, a step, anything that's somewhere around knee height, you can start off, if you're fairly new to this, a little bit higher, and as you get better, you squat a little bit lower. What we can do is a box squat. So instead of squatting down and supporting our own weight throughout the whole movement, what we do, we stand near a box, we squat down, and we sit. My weight is now off my feet, okay? I can lift them up if I want. We sit, and what this has done is it's taken the tension out of my rec fem and out of my quads. I no longer have loads of tension pulling through the patella tendon and through the kneecap, so knee pain and the pressure on the knee is gone. From this position, I stand back up. Bam. Okay? So I come down, I take the weight off, I stand back up. I'm pushing hard through my heels as I come back up. I'm keeping my back straight. And this is a nice alternative to start to build the strength around the legs and build the strength around the knees, but without going to such a range where you start to feel tension in the knee capsule. So it will help to remove the tension there, remove the pain there. Now you can also add weight. If you're adding weight to this, you would hold a weight, a dumbbell, a kettlebell, anything like that, underneath your chin, and you stand like so. Okay, so this is a very, very simple variation of something you can do if squatting causes you problems, getting down into that range causes you issues with your knee capsule. This is a really quick alternative, and you will hear me call this a box squat, or I will say squat to a box or squat to a sofa. So listen out for that cue if you have issues with your knee. Okay. Another thing that we do a fair amount of is single leg stuff. You will see that we've done a lot of lunges, a lot of step ups, things like that. The reason we do this is by working a single leg, we are able to balance out the hip musculature. We make sure that our abductors, adductors, everything that lifts our leg forwards, backwards, side to side are balanced out, because if they are not, we end up with twisted hips and we end up with problems again around the knee, around the hips, around the back. If we can start to iron that out by doing a lot of single leg stuff, it's very, very beneficial to us. So some of you may be finding that you have issue with things like the reverse lunge, or maybe the forward lunge, or maybe even the rear foot elevated split squat. These are all incredibly, incredibly effective exercises. But if you struggle because of this tension through your knee, again, priority number one is stretching and foam rolling. But we do have some alternatives. For those of you who are fairly strong, we can use a single leg squat. So in exactly the same way that we just did our double leg box squat, we can do the same thing with one leg, like so. We come down, sit down, take the tension off, stand back up. Come down, sit down, take the tension off, stand back up. And as you get better, you're going to be able to get lower and lower. If you can't do that, because it does create some instability around the knee and around the hip, which is a good thing, but if you have pain and tightness that we haven't fixed yet, it can cause you some discomfort. Instead, you can do a step up. So again, you may want to do it on something a little bit lower than this, but this is great if not. From here, and we step up. Because what we're doing here is we're still using the single leg. We're working that glute very, very hard. We're making sure the hips are trying to stay in line. We've got great posture. It's a highly metabolic exercise, but because of where my weight is in relation to my knee, I'm not putting any excessive pressure through my joint capsule, okay? So, our alternatives for leg exercises that you struggle to do, whether that be lunges or squats, are number one, the easiest variation is a double leg box squat. So straight up and down, taking the tension off, and we add weight if possible. The second alternative would be a step up. If you have access to a step, again, we can hold dumbbells here, we can hold a barbell here, we can hold a goblet there, however you want to do it, and we stand up again, up and down, up and down, okay? Really simple. Final and most progressed version and alternative is our single leg squat. One foot out in front, slowly down, sit and stand. Now we can of course do a regression to that. You can place one foot just on its toe in front like this. Hopefully you can see this. And we come down and straight back up. But we're keeping the toe in contact with the floor rather than the heel. So we can't put too much pressure in driving up. So look at these three exercises. Watch this video a few times. And for now, until you have fixed the problems, which you must do, it's not a case of just trying to work around them. You must fix the problems over time, and you have the resources available to do that. I've already given them to you. These are the exercises that we're going to try and work out. And of course, as always, don't be afraid to speak to me on the videos. If we're doing a workout and you say, do you know what, I feel like this wasn't quite right for me. Is there something else I can do? There is always something else we can find to make sure you get the most out of every single workout. The final point I'm going to say is that we can also use wedges. There's a number of you who may just have a little bit of trouble balancing your squat and not getting the most out of it purely because of your foot position. And you've heard me many, many times say, use a couple of magazines, use a book, use a wedge if you have them. When we do that, it allows us to kind of cheat the position of our ankles. We're almost standing on tippy toes like so. That's going to allow us to get in deeper. Now I'm going to illustrate that. I'm going to grab a couple of plates and I'll show you the difference between the two types of squat. Now what I'm going to show you first is a squat without any support, any wedges underneath my heels. Now I'm fairly lucky in that I'm built quite well for squatting. This is because my leg length relative to my upper body length is pretty good and I can get down fairly deep without leaning forwards too much. A lot of you females out there, because you have much, much longer legs, naturally, it can make getting into the bottom of a squat very difficult. And what you'll find is you have to lean forwards a lot or you can't get down. That's because you can't drop your hips down far enough because your torso has to lean forwards and your bum will counterbalance that. So if we were to take a normal squat, I come down like this. Now, mine's fairly good because I can open my knees out. I've got the weight in the heels, I can keep my chest up. And by opening the knees out like that, what I'm doing is I'm creating space for my hips to drop straight between my knees, okay? So if we look at this position, it's still an effort for me, there's plenty of tension, but I can keep my body fairly upright, okay? Now, what we do when we use wedges or a magazine or something underneath our heels is we place them down like that. And you can literally take a couple of magazines off your coffee table. We place our heels on top of them, but while our toes are on the floor. So we've elevated our heels about an inch, maybe an inch and a half. From this position, because what this has now done is it's lifted my heels, which allows my knee to travel further over my toe. When that happens, it allows my hips to come further forwards because obviously the length of my femur doesn't change, which then allows me to keep my torso more upright. So if we look at this one now, I can now sit pretty much into that squat. I mean, I'm basically upright, okay? So this is because my squat was fairly good before. If I use this, it makes it considerably easier. So straight up and down. I'll do a couple of reps. So pay attention to my body position here, how upright my torso is. Now, if I kick these away and do the same thing, it's much, much harder for me to try to keep that position. And I may even be leaning forwards ever so slightly more. So, if you struggle to get in depth, and sometimes you feel excessive pressure on your knees, that's enough of an alternative to use. But, despite all of the exercise variation that we've just gone through, this is most important. Do not ignore the problems. If you ignore them, they will get worse. It doesn't take long, 10 minutes a day, 2 weeks in, and your knee problems that could have plagued you for years have gone. You have to put that effort into fixing things. Don't try to work around them. It's like putting a plaster on a cut. The cut is still there. Just because you can't see it, what we need to do is make sure that we address it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with all sorts of problems. The joint capsule is going to get further damaged. You could end up with meniscus tears, tendon tears, ligament damage, and we want to make sure that all of you are moving well, consistently for a long time. You can be fit, you can be healthy, you can do a greater variation of sports, and most of the time it's really, really easily fixed with a little bit of attention. Okay, so I hope you've managed to get through this with me jabbering on. These are exercise alternatives if you cannot do the normal ones inside the class without knee pain. We had a squat to box, we had a single leg squat to box, and we had a step up. All three of these movements are movements that will not and certainly should not cause you any pain in your knees unless you have some serious problems, in which case this needs to be done before you even attempt any of this. If these exercises still cause you pain, there's a bit of an issue. Good luck, and if you have any more questions, remember to catch me in the classes.